right. So some people are like watermelons, green on the outside, but when you cut through the surface, the truth is there's red flags everywhere. So this episode is about the people that you've been pretending that you don't see clearly, and the word that keeps you stuck. And that word is yes, saying yes to everything. So welcome back to another episode of From Shadows to Strength. I'm Tyson, and Jay's in the room with me, and you're going to hear from him along the way. So today we're going to get into something that doesn't always get talked about enough, and that's toxic relationships. So whether it's family, friends, romantic, doesn't matter the label, it's the same pattern, and it's the same cost. And the second half is protecting your no, saying the word that most people choke on, even when they know they should say it. So talking about toxic relationships, this takes me back to when I was actually in prison, when I was with my ex and I allowed her back into my life. So one of my big fears back then was doing my time on my own. It terrified me. I felt alone, and I was willing to bring back someone in who I knew was toxic. Now, at this time, this would have been about, I want to say about 3 years into my sentence. I had come to a realization and started to make some profound changes in my life. And she had actually just lost her brother. She had lost her brothers to cystic fibrosis. And, I thought maybe that her losing her brother might have woken her up and forced her to make some changes. So much like me feeling I deserved a second chance, I figured, maybe she deserved a second chance too. If I'm capable of making changes, she's capable of making changes. So, I figured I'd rather, maybe have her back in my life. And even though maybe there might be some red flags, maybe she's changed. So I did what maybe I shouldn't have done in hindsight, but I'm glad I kind of did, because it actually allowed me to hold my no for my first time. So when I let her back into my life, I made it really clear to her, because I had broken up with her, I don't even know, probably for the fifth time, sixth time. I told her that if there's any sign that you're the person that you were, it's over. You'll never hear from me again. That's it. So after about 2 months of having her back into my life, there were little things, not anything significant. Everything still seemed green on the outside, much like that watermelon. There was a little thing she'd say, though, especially when my parole officer at the time, she wouldn't allow us to have the trailer visits right away, even though we had lived together. And usually if you have a common law relationship with someone, they'll let you right back into having the trailer visits. But they said because of our past and our toxic, kind of history, they were going to make it, be at least a year. They wanted to wait at least a year for us to have that. And that was not what she wanted to hear. So that was kind of her response. Instead of being understanding, was really angry, really pissed off. And she started saying things that reminded me of the old person that she was. But it was a second action that she did. I'm not going to get into it, but there was a second action that she did, and that was the one that made me realize that nothing had changed. So I held my no and cut her out of my life. That was arguably one of the harder things I had to do at that moment. Not in overall in my life, but that's where I had to end that relationship. And that was hard to do. Because now, all right, I guess I'm on my own going forward. And that broke me for a good week. For a good week, cried in my cell every night. Obviously, I didn't show my emotion in front of anyone. Yeah, it was a hard thing to do. Jay, you've seen guys, I'm sure, while in the military that have reached back in a relationship they knew was wrong because they couldn't be alone. From your world, what did that look like? And what was maybe underneath it for these guys?
A lot of it was like kids were a big thing. So many people go back or stay in because of the kids. And then the second main thing was finance. You know what I mean? So guys will look like, okay, how much is this going to cost me to divorce? Like, am I paying alimony? Am I paying child support? Am I Do I have to move this person and stuff like that? So the biggest thing in the military is kids and money. Those are the two biggest things that everybody kind of thinks about. And a lot of people will stay with their partner and that because of just the cost. They're like, I'm not happy, but if I try to divorce this person, we have two kids together, that's two child supports or whatever, I'll have no money left in my paycheck because she will get awarded everything. And so a lot of guys, they make the decision to stay. You have the odd just single guys, toxic girlfriend, to go back. But the biggest thing we see is kids and money is definitely the biggest problems in the military.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I watched it with other inmates I was locked up with that would stay in toxic relationships, whether they were, verbally abusive, even physically abusive. It's funny, it's more talked about now, but we don't always think about men being physically abused by their common law or their spouse or whatever, but straight up happens all the time. Just we don't talk about it because why are we going to admit that our wife or girlfriend or anyone beats us up? And then guys, like you said, that whole staying with it because of financial reasons. Yeah. My God, I can't even tell you how many times I've had that conversation with people. If you have no peace, if you're in a really bad relationship, and they're not even married yet. So yeah, well, we just bought a house together, and and then I'm gonna lose this, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you're gonna lose a chunk of money. You're gonna maybe lose the $10,000 you put down on your house. What's $10,000 when it comes to the rest of your life? Yeah, well, I've already invested, 3-4 years in this relationship. Okay. And you're going to invest another decade? You don't see the problem with this? But we'll literally sit there and justify and minimize, and even guys will have the delusion that they can change this person. Oh, I can help them. No, you can't. You absolutely can. And they'll stay in that relationship thinking that they're going to make a difference. It doesn't come down to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see it.
And it's sad to see that.
Sorry, I was going to say, so many young guys, because I was like a supervisor near the end. So a lot of the young kids and that would come in and they talk to the supervisors and they basically say, hey, this is my situation, my home life, blah, blah. And then, like I didn't want to be the easy answer guy, but I'd be like, well, should you maybe leave? And he's like, and they'd all have the same answers as you. And it was men and women. They'd be like, well, we just bought a house together. We bought this car together. We have equal payments and this and that. And it was more about the money and logistics problems than it was about happiness, which I never really understood. I was like, I get it. The boomers, they were miserable so much, and those parents stayed together for kids. But they were just miserable and alcoholics and everything else. And then they would just take all that frustration out on their kids because the only reason why they stayed together was for their kids,
Yeah, so the kids suffer.
Exactly. Like, I wish my parents would have got divorced so long ago, just from the friggin' nightmare anger issues they had and everything else, because they didn't want to be together. So I see people that will do it for finances, but their mind just gets destroyed. They're not at peace. They're always grumpy. They don't want to be in that situation. They're just miserable. I'm like, okay, well, you may have to get a roommate for a few years. You may have to do something, go back down a couple levels, work your way back up financially. But it's either that or you're just miserable your whole life. Like, I've never understood that.
You said something just a second ago that made me laugh a little bit inside. You said, you might have to go get a roommate. Well, you know what? If you stay with that person long enough that you're miserable with, they become your roommate anyways. Yeah. Because I'm going to stay together with this person because of my kids. Well, then, if that's the case, then do something to actively fix the marriage. Let's do something. Let's address the problems. Let's make it better. Otherwise, number one, your unhappy marriage is now going to be the example your kids are raised around. Or if you just stay together for the kids, well, what happens when the kids leave? Well, now you're just living with your roommate.
Yeah.
Because you avoided all the hard conversations. You want to stay together out of politeness?
I think it's for stress. Because you have so much stress in life with work and this and this and this. And I don't know, maybe it's that one place where they just don't want the stress. So they don't want something else. So they just, but it just causes,
well, there is stress,
it just causes more in the long run.
Arguably. Yeah. Arguably, I mean, like, I can't imagine. I'm so blessed with Joelle, and I always tell her this, how I come home and I have peace. I didn't have that with my ex. I never had peace. And again, it's not just her. I was not in a good place myself. I was as much of the problem, if not more. I mean, I'm kind of old school, so whether people agree with me or not, I should have taken the lead as the head of the house. I should have gotten my shit right. And then hopefully in turn, she might have done the same thing. But we weren't at that place in our life yet. I wasn't anyways. And I failed. And again, this isn't me telling that story about, in the beginning about me being in prison and her kind of letting me see that there were still some red flags there. I'm not blaming her for it. It's just she still wasn't ready to address her issues while I was. That's an important thing is maybe there's guys right now that are working towards addressing some issues and their spouse isn't, or their girlfriend isn't, or their common law isn't. And you can't force that. So hopefully you can lead by example, but you're going to have to be careful. So guys, how many of you listening right now have allowed themselves to be in a relationship like this? So, again, whether it's romantic or a friendship, right? Staying in something longer than they should. I think something that no one wants to acknowledge is a partner will disrespect you and still stay. Now, your partner, they're not saying because they love you, but because they know no other person would tolerate what you do. I really want you guys to sit with that for a minute and think about it. And I've had this hard conversation with clients before. If you were watching, if you were outside of your relationship, watching what was going on right now, what would you say to yourself? And most of them would say, yeah, you need to get out. I mean, we'll be quick to point out the flaws in everyone else's relationship. But we'll avoid facing the realities of our own. We'll avoid acknowledging the way that our partner treats us. And again, this applies for females as well. It's not just men. It goes both ways. Right? If your partner treats you like that, know that they're just staying with you because they know most people wouldn't tolerate that. But you will. And that goes with your confidence, lack of self-respect. If you don't respect yourself, how's your partner, how's your spouse supposed to respect you? So I think a lot of people right now, I think you might be guilty of this and may understand and relate to what I'm talking about, because the lies we tell ourselves, we justify, we minimize, because we'd rather live in the discomfort than to face the reality alone. And I don't think it's weakness. It's human. I mean, I guess it's weakness to a degree, but it's just, we're human, right? Discomfort with someone we know and that's familiar, sometimes just we'll accept. And sometimes we'll look at it and be like, well, you know what's better than being alone? I'd rather be in this than be alone. So we choose the discomfort. But in choosing the discomfort, you're choosing so much more. So much more is going to impact you. And I'm sorry, but a person who destroys your mental health cannot be the love of your life. Never. I need my audience to understand that. If they are contributing to the destruction of your mental health, that is not the love of your life. So, Jay, in the military world, guys that stay in marriages, stay in friendships, stay in units, just so they don't have to be the one who walks away first. What does that end up costing in the long run? What have you seen?
Um, that's a good one. It's like a lot of guys will get complacent and want to stay with their kind of the lazy friend. There's always lazy groups in every organization. So the guys, they stay with the lazy groups and the lazy friends just on their phones. They never really try out for anything. They never really try out for parajumper or a diver or special forces or anything like that because, they're with that lazy group and they're all just like, well, what's the point? You'll just get injured. You'll just get that. And then, they get into the weed gummies at night and they never train. They never train properly, go to the gym. And some guys just do it with the negative friends, You can get in the negative friend group that just wants to party every weekend, drink, do whatever, and they never it's almost like they join the military, but it's just continuous kind of frat boy image from like college and university, and they never really want to grow up. But if you want to grow up and you have career goals and you want to try out for different stuff, the hardest part is you have to leave those friends. Like you've outgrown that friend group. And if you want to try out to be a diver or a jumper or special forces or something, well, you're going to have to leave your friend group because you have to take it. You got to start your training now. You got to, get your fitness on track. You don't want to drink every weekend. You actually want to aspire to be more in life. But your old high school and college friends and stuff, some are very advanced and they leave the groups fast because they want to move on. Some get stuck in those groups for the rest of their life and they never do anything else unless told to, so you have to make that choice. Like, hey, if this friend group, which is, probably one of your best friend groups you ever had, probably the best university college years ever, but it has to come to a point where that time is over and now you're into the next step. And you can call it a lone wolf, a wolf pack, a small group, whatever you want to call it, but you have to take your life into your hands and say, I want to try out for this, and do this. Well, then you got to leave that group behind. You got to leave that friendship behind, that slow group behind. You got to jump on the faster train or the faster, people that are going forward in your direction. Like if your friend group is going right, but your life wants to go straight and you see your goals going straight, well, you have to take your own road, as you say, that dirty, narrow path that's filled with rocks and bumps, but it's to success. Well, then you got to get off the yellow brick road, which is the easy, gummy, drinking party every weekend, and you got to go up the shitty path by yourself. But you'll meet other people on that path. You'll meet other hikers like you, other climbers who are going in that way, but they're far and few on that path compared to the yellow brick road, which is full of the gummy, the drinkers, the party, the laid back, the, non-savers, whatever they are,
You talking about that reminds me of, I'm sure you've seen Good Will Hunting. Yeah, like one of my all-time favorite movies. And it makes me think of when Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are having that hard conversation where he's like, Matt Damon's hesitating because of this gift he has. He's arguably a genius, but he's so tied with his boys, and I'd rather stay here, raise our kids together. I always love it. I can't really quote it verbatim. Mind you, how many times I've seen that movie, you'd think I'd be able to quote it verbatim. But I love how Ben Affleck's just like, if you stay here, I'm going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
Like, if you're still here in a few years, I'm going to kick your ass. Because even a good friend should recognize, and that's what a true friend is, right? If they see you going somewhere, a true friend is going to tell you, bro, I'm not the person who's going to change my life, but you're changing your life. You need to kind of leave us behind. Because I'm dead weight. And that's what a true friend, that's what a real relationship is about, is sometimes acknowledging that you're holding that person down. And we don't want to be that person. And sometimes we have to take ourselves out of the fight. And I'm sure that's maybe even a military reference, right? Like sometimes you got to take yourself out of the fight because you're going to be hindrance to your unit.
Yeah, I remember the one
Well,
good
like,
helicopter pilot became a good friend of mine. He was a tank driver at first. He joined the army as a tank driver, but he was smart as hell. And then, after 3 years of that, he's like, "Oh, I want to be better. I want to be a helicopter pilot." And everybody laughed at him. Everybody laughed at him. You won't make it. Da, da, da. When you just hang with us, he's like, "No, I have these goals." He was he's like one of those walking geniuses. And he wanted to do a bit of hardcore army tank driver stuff. But after 3 years, he wanted to pursue. And everybody held him back. Even some of his bosses said, "Are you going to turn your back on us?" He's like, "What are you talking about? I'm bettering myself." And sure enough, he became one of the helicopter pilots for GTF2, for the Special Forces. That's how good he was. And if he would have listened to those guys that held him back, whatever, he never would have saw his full potential. He would have been just a tank driver his entire life. Maybe he probably would have been miserable, but he would have stuck to it because he listened to his friends. But he followed his dreams, his goals. He made his own path and became a helicopter pilot for the Special Forces.
relationships. Be careful. And if you really think about it, I think this is what a lot of people avoid looking at, is that every time we tell ourselves that lie, right? They'll change. It's not that bad. Oh, I'm overreacting. You're the one paying, right? Because you're the one minimizing it. You just don't see the bill yet. Yeah. You're racking up a bill right now with every lie, with every minimization, with every justification. We're racking up a bill. We're racking up a tab. So yeah, you might lose the house. You might lose out on some of the things that you've invested in. But you need to ask yourself, if I stay in this, there's that saying, right? The longer you stay on a train, if you going the wrong way, the more, if you don't get off right away, the more expensive that return ticket's going to be. The more you're going to have to pay. So when that bill comes later in your nervous system, it's going to manifest itself in your nervous system, in your sleep, in the version of you that shows up to everything else. And the people in your life who are not toxic, so the real ones, they pay too. So again, if you're married, your kids pay the price. They need you, but now they're footing part of the bill. Because the version of you that's stuck in that lie is not the version they need. So where you are right now is due to a series of choices that you made in your life. Compromises that you've made. And I can't think of one that runs so common as having the wrong people in your life. I mean, not everyone has abused drugs. Not everyone has an alcohol problem. But the majority of people that I've worked with all have the wrong people in their life. That's a common theme. I mean, I've even just think of like people who want to go sober for a month and their friends mock them.
Yeah. Or one beer.
Openly, yes. Openly mock them or go on a diet. Oh, come on, have a piece of cheesecake. Why are you being like that? Well, I just want to have a month without any sugar. I want to have a month without any alcohol. Yeah. Like the people who mock you in that, who won't support you in that, like what the hell's wrong with people? It's one that always makes me laugh. Like there's your red flag right there.
Even before I was, I'd say probably not strong enough. If I go out and I didn't want to drink, well, guys would be like, "Oh, what's one drink?" or "What's what?" So I'd get a rum and Coke with no rum in it. So it'd look like the normal rum and Coke glass, but it was just Diet Pepsi or whatever. Because I didn't want to hear it from people. You know what I mean? "Oh, one drink, come on." So I just tell the waiter, make it look like a rum and Coke, just Pepsi. And I would drink that. But like now I'm strong enough to be like, "No, don't feel like it, fuck off." You know what I mean? But then and you could tell people, if you're not strong enough and you have to make a fake drink for now because you don't want to deal with the problem or you're building yourself, well, then get a fake drink. No one needs to know about it. You know you're not breaking your, no alcohol rule that you want to do. You get a fake drink, and then when you go home, you be like, You know what? It was good. It gave me some power. Next time I'm going to tell them, no, I'm not doing it. You know? But if it's a baby step you got to do the baby step. I had to do it, you know?
That's actually a great tip because I mean, you can go to a bar, or, you know, or maybe even a restaurant. Maybe not a bar if you're struggling with alcohol as an addiction, but maybe you're going out for dinner with your friends and you have those kind of friends. You can always tell the waiter, hey, I'm going to order rum and Coke, hold the
Yeah.
rum. Can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
You know, just 2 seconds. Arrive a minute before your friends do, and just tell the waiter, hey, just so I don't have to listen to my buddies chirp me, because the easier step might be to be sober than to leave your friends right away. So make the small step.
Yeah.
Make that one choice while you build up the courage, maybe to separate from yourself from the group who doesn't want to support you. And I think another thing that's really important is, even though you're with the wrong people, the wrong crowd, maybe the wrong friends, the wrong relationship, whatever it is, the one thing that's really important is don't go and start shifting the blame to them. Because you're the one who's choosing to stay around these people. You're the one who's choosing to have them in your life, because it's easier to have them than to cut them out. So again, this is why, even though I talk about my ex, or I talk about sometimes my past associates that I was with, that I did crime with, that, you know, I was around when I was in my worst state, it wasn't because of them that I was in my worst state. I was in my worst state because of the compromises I made, because of the lies that I told myself, and because of my choices. It wasn't because of my parents. It wasn't because of my ADHD. It wasn't because of my depression. It wasn't because I didn't have a dad. It wasn't because I was bullied. It wasn't because of my ex or my friends. It was because of me. It was me. So if you're not in a good place right now, it's not your spouse's fault. It's not your husband's fault, not your wife's fault, not your best friend's fault, not your mom or dad's fault. At a certain point, it falls on you. At some point, you have to take ownership for it. So if you wonder maybe why you're stalled and stuck where you are, that's one of the things you need to look at. Who you're surrounding yourself with. Ask yourself, are they contributing anything to your life and to your success? Or are they contributing to your slow and steady demise? So Jay, with that being said, you used to say something about who you stand next to when the round goes off. You said that before. So tell me what that means in the unit and how that translates to outside when nobody's running drills anymore.
Yeah, it's like for us, it's easy. Like for an army guy, I'd be like, if I'm willing to stand beside that guy while he shoots right beside me, and I could kneel in front of him, I could stand right beside him, whatever, and I have all the trust in the world because I know I know his character, I know who he is, I know he's there to protect me, and vice versa. So it's like you have that bond, that trust. So, and that's the kind of thing I look for in friendships outside the military. Like my small little group I have is only about 4 or 5 of my friends, and we ride together and stuff. But if I know that I need anything, I could call them anytime and they would come help me out. If I ever called and said, hey, had an accident on my bike, can you guys get there? They would all drop and bomb to wherever I am to help me out, you know? And if I can be that kind of friendship with somebody outside the military that's willing to help me out if I ever need to, they could call me and I would, if he called me right now and I'm on the podcast with you, I'd be like, sorry, Tice, I got to go. That's one of my true friends. I got to go help him out. He had an accident or something. So those are the kind of people I want to surround myself with. I want them to know they can lean on me, and I lean on them if I ever need anything. And I find people are more concerned about the number of friends they have than the quality of friends. I could care less if I have 3 friends. If they're the best friends in the world, I only need 3, Like I could care less if people say, oh, invite 20 of your friends. I don't even have 20 friends I can invite to some ticket things I win, but I could invite the 4 or 5 best friends that I have that I can, that I could depend on. They could depend on me. So I can care less the number of friends I have. It's the quality of friends that I want. That's That's the only thing that's important to me. Same with the special forces. We work in small teams. It's just small little teams that you
Yeah.
depend on. And you get to trust them. They know you. They know what makes you grumpy. They know everything about you. And the same with my small group of friends outside the military. Like you know what annoys me, what makes me grumpy when I'm in a good mood. You can tell right away. And I can tell that with my small friends group as well. And that's the important part. That's what'll bring you peace and happiness and everything else.
Well said, my friend. Because it's true. I think one thing we all realize as we get older, and you won't realize this. Maybe some of the young guys listening, if we have any young listeners, honestly, I don't know. But some of the young guys are like, oh, I got tons of friends. But as you get older, you start to realize you only have a handful of people, if you're lucky. The older you get, the smaller your group of friends goes. Some people you outgrow, and it's not that you like stop caring about them. You just realize that you're just on two different paths.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you get to a point, I think, in your life where you're not willing to sacrifice your purpose. You're not willing to sacrifice your peace. And I know it sounds selfish, but you're not willing to sacrifice your happiness for your buddy who's still acting like a Neanderthal or like an idiot. I've seen guys in their 30s who are still like living it up. Oh, I'm still partying, I'm drinking, and staying up till 5 a.m. on weekends. Like, you're almost 40, bro. What are you doing? I'm not saying, I guess, once in a while you can't do that, but frequent weekends where you're doing that, like, that sounds like you're escaping reality.
Yeah. But you can't tell him. I mean, if he's happy, he's doing it, and he thinks it on cloud nine, I can't tack him off it.
Yeah.
I'll be like, okay.
It's not your job. It's not our job to lecture those people. It's just acknowledging they're not where you're at anymore.
Yeah.
And to walk away.
Yeah,
Clean break.
so many people think it's a bad thing. It's not. Like, he can still text me and I'll answer, and that person can still do whatever and I'll talk to him. But like, I'm going this way, he's going that way. Like, we can still chat and, text message once a week or whatever happens. But I'm past that stage. I've done that stuff, and I kind of want to do other things in my life now. And I want my weekends to myself. I don't want to sleep my weekends away. I don't just want to have that feeling where I'm too tired to do stuff and I miss the sun and miss the afternoon walks and just being outside during the day,
Absolutely, man. So I got some homework before we move on to section 2. So here's the homework, guys. Real homework, okay? Make a list. 5 people you spend the most time with. In person, on the phone, text thread, whatever. Just 5. Now, beside each name, write one word. So either contributing or costing. No spectrum, no maybe, no it depends. Contributing or costing. If 3 or more are costing, you have your answer about why you're stuck. Because there's a certain point, even if you're doing all that work with you, but you're staying in the same circle, that's why you're staying stuck. Because you won't leave that last part behind. And I'm so grateful that I allowed prison to detox me from my ex and from all those people in my life. Because had I come out and gone back to that same group of people, it's not that I would have gone back into a life of crime right away. But if I went back to the same group of people, what do you think my chances are at keeping my freedom? Not very good. Because the many will always influence the few. So, now going into protecting your no. This is why I'm kind of pairing it. With toxic relationships, protecting your no is vitally important. So everything I just said, the audit, the cutting people out, the choosing different, none of it works if you can't say no. And mean it. And hold it. Most guys think saying no is the hard part. It's not, actually. The hard part is what comes after. It's the guilt, the phone call you weren't ready for, the family member who lays that guilt trip on you, the friend who turns the volume up to make you cave. Protecting your no means staying in the no after they've made it expensive to be there. So Jay, week one for a guy who's never said no in his life and trying for the first time, what does that look like? What do you think? That hard no.
Yeah, I just remember from my days of the hard no back, in my 30s. You feel bad for saying no. Actually, you actually feel guilty to protecting yourself, which is the dumbest thing ever. You feel bad about saying no, about going out. You feel this, and then they start texting you like, oh, come on, you're not part of the team. Come on, we're just a few drinks here and there or whatever. You'd be like, no, or we're going to go do this. I don't want to do that today. Like, whatever it is, kayaking. Let's say you hate kayaking, but you actually feel bad. You're like, no, I don't like kayaking. Oh, come on, we're all coming. You have fun, da da da. And then they kind of wear you down and you say yes, or you stick to your no. Now, at my age, you ask me to do something I don't want to do, you're going to get a hard F no on that one. And I got no regrets, nothing. If I don't want to do it, if I don't like doing it, I ain't doing it. But back then, you actually feel guilty for protecting yourself. You actually feel like, I feel bad that I'm saying no to him. Don't. If they're dragging you out to do something you don't want to do, it's just going to aggravate you all day. And then you're going to go home in a grumpy mood because you didn't stick to your no. Just find your peace, say no, and stick to it. And yeah, they may get their nose bent out of joint or whatever, but after you say no a few times and you stick to it, they will realize like, hey, he doesn't like to do this. He likes his days doing this, whatever, let's not ask him for that because it's just not his thing. And you can do other things with them. You can do, whether they like to do this with you with this. It's just, if there's something they do that you don't like doing, don't do it. By all means, don't do it. But I know at first you're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel bad. You're going to make excuses. You're going to tell them, oh, I had this other thing and da. And if that helps you at the beginning, sure. But I'm telling you, don't ever feel bad saying no. Protect your peace, protect your happiness, protect everything. Do what you want to do. I mean, don't be a dick if he asks you for a real favor. Yes, maybe go help him.
We know what you mean. We know what you mean. Yeah.
I mean,
as long as it doesn't infringe on your integrity.
Yes.
Basically, don't compromise your integrity just to please the other person.
Exactly. Yeah. Perfect. Well said.
Fundamentally, that's what it is. And like you're right. The guilt is going to come, and it's normal. And I'm going to explain why. Because guilt isn't a sign you're doing the wrong thing. It's a sign you're doing a new thing. That's the difference. That's the discomfort. Because our brain's just doing what brains do. It wants to stay in a comfortable position. So having to say no, guess what? It's uncomfortable. You're used to saying yes. Even if you don't want to do it, like you said, like, hey, you want to go kayaking? Yeah. You know what? No. And they might ask you a few more times, but eventually they're going to realize if you hold that no, they're just going to stop asking you. Come on, have that drink with us. No. Why? And again, I said this in one of the podcasts before, and I'm going to say it again for first-time listeners. No is a full sentence. It's a complete sentence. There's no further explanation required. You don't owe any further of an explanation if you don't want to give it. Because on the journey of self-betterment, sometimes it's hard to articulate why you're choosing to do something because you're trying to build a new part of your identity. But because that part of your identity hasn't fully taken root yet, right? So maybe in that beginning, right, first 30 days, you have motivation and willpower. So you're really motivated to maybe stop drinking or stop smoking or stop snacking at night or stop drugs, whatever it is. Well, then during that time, you're going to have, maybe that easy time. You're doing well with it. It's going well. I'm saying no. But it's going to be a little bit harder around that 3-week mark. I talked about this in one of my posts about that extinction burst. And that's where that craving or that yes is going to come on stronger than it's ever come on before. Because you're just trying to hold on to who you were. But when that happens, when that craving comes back, when that desire comes back, when you want to compromise on your no, that's actually a sign that you're almost there. 2-3 more days, it won't be there anymore. So just stick to your guns. Hold your no. Because eventually when your identity is formed, and then days 60 to 90 is you kind of building that habit, solidifying that habit. And day 90 and over, that's your identity. So saying the no, now if you want to give the explanation, you can. But in the beginning, you don't have to. Just focus on saying no. Later, maybe you could explain to your friends if they're still there, if they stayed around, if you kept them around. You explain to them why. This is why I'm doing this. Maybe you're going to be comfortable enough to open up. Maybe you can help someone who's struggling with the same thing. You can be the person that maybe leads the example, and you can help someone in your group who maybe he's always wanted to say no himself, but always caved to peer pressure. So, again, don't argue your no. You repeat it. Different words, same answers. The first time you negotiate your no, understand you've already lost it. So, Jay, brotherhood. The label everyone uses, but most of these relationships don't actually do the job. From your world in the military, how do you tell a real one from a label? And how does protecting your no help you find that person, that brotherhood?
Oh man, it's funny because in the military, you just know. I know that's probably a cheesy answer, but it's like in the military, you just know. You just gravitate to that person that's like you, has this thing, and you never have to say no to those people because they just know you. You never have to defend a no. Like people ask me all the time how I met V. I bumped into V in the hallway at the military. I heard that this young kid downstairs, new in the military, had a motorcycle. And he was all cocky about this motorcycle. He thought his motorcycle was the fastest motorcycle in the world. And I was like, who's this kid? He's like, oh, he's downstairs. His name's, VJ. I said, okay. So I went for a walk. And I went and looked for him. And I bumped into him. And I was like, hey, you VJ? I was like, here, you have a bike and stuff like that. And from that conversation, we became the best friends ever. From one conversation of me to go bump him in the hallway to talk about his motorcycle. And I've never had to say no to him. He's never asked me to do anything that would ever jeopardize anything and stuff. And I don't know what it was. When you find that one friend or that two friends or three friends, they will never ask you anything stupid like that you have to defend and know. They may ask, hey, I'm having a barbecue, a bunch of people coming over. No, man, not today. I'm tired. I'm relaxed. Okay, cool. Excellent. And that's all it is. It's no peer pressure, no hassle, no whatever. If I went out with V and I'd be like, hey, V, you want a beer? He'd be like, oh, no, I got to get up early tomorrow and stuff. I'd be like, okay, cool. You know what I mean? I would never be like, I'd never say to V, oh, come on, just have one. You can still work out early tomorrow. Just have one. I'd never say that to him and he'd never say it to me. So when you find that person, and you may take you to your 30, 40, 50 till you find your best friends or your close circle. It's no guarantee it's going to happen in your 20s or 30s. People think it does, but it's usually not till later in life. And they will never ask you more questions after you say no. That's how you really know the real ones, the brotherhood, the close friends. That's how you know.
I love that, man, because that's so true. The real ones, that brotherhood, that brother, they'll never ask you a second time if you say no the first time. Never. And they won't bust your balls over it. They won't rag on you for it. They'll respect you for it. You'll be like, oh, okay, cool. And it doesn't mean you're stopping them from doing it.
No.
You offer him a beer. He's not, no, I'm good. Not tonight. Okay, cool. I'm going to have one.
Yeah, you come over to my bike. We're cleaning bikes. He's like, no, I got to train. I'd be like, want a beer? No, okay. I'm still going to crank mine. And I'd be like, what do you want? You want a water, Monster? What? He said, oh, you know what? I'd take a Monster because I want to go for a run after. Okay, here's a Monster. You know what I mean? It doesn't change anything you do. Yeah, you just never pressure. It's just, I don't know. That's the road. It's like you and I, like me and I know each other, and you would never ask me, or if you asked me to do something, I'd say no. You'd be like, okay, cool. It's just not his thing,
Yeah. And that also takes maturity. As much as we We tease each other and bust each other's balls. There's certain things that we know you just don't cross a line. And that's just mutual respect. Life, has we've both been through some things in our life where, as similar as they are, they're quite different. And it's just a matter of just honoring what someone says. You only have to tell me once. And that's how a real friend should be. You should only have to tell them once. And they'll honor and respect that. And if your friend does otherwise, there's a problem. And if you're listening to this and maybe you know someone I just described, that's not a coincidence. That's the work pointing at itself. If you know that person, wait a minute, yeah, they're always kind of doing that. They're not really respecting, that's it. That's the person. But the onus is on you. The work's on you, not them. So you don't have to do, for the listeners, you don't have to do anything dramatic this week. You don't have to send a long text. You don't have to write a speech. You just have to do an audit. You just have to do an audit. That's it. 5 people, 1 word each. Again, I'm just going to reiterate it as we get to the end here. Contributing or costing. And if you have a no that you've been swallowing, say it just once this week. Just once. Just to see what happens. See what happens with the people you're around when you say no. See who honors it and see who dishonors your no. Because remember, again, it's a full sentence. It's a complete sentence. That's where the work starts, guys. That's it. So thanks for being here. Jay, as always, thanks for being here. It's always a pleasure to get your years of wisdom, your lived experience, my friend. Appreciate it. So tune in for next time, guys. Thank you for listening.